Hello there and welcome to Il Salotto Sessions. I am Sara Seravalli, an Italian event organizer with a profound enthusiasm for design and architecture, bringing over 15 years of experience from my work across showrooms in Milan, Paris and London. Fueled by a passion for connecting people in the design world, I founded Design Pop-Up in 2014, a specification-focused event that has since traveled throughout the UK and Ireland. Today I'm expanding my vision with Il Salotto, a vibrant space, both physical and virtual, dedicated to inspiring meaningful conversations and fostering connections within the design community. I hope you will enjoy my chats. Hello there and welcome to this new episode of Il Salotto Sessions. I've got the immense pleasure today of chatting away with the amazing Helen Berresford, partner at Sheppard Robson and head of ID. Good afternoon, Helen.
Good afternoon. Nice to see you.
Lovely to see you too. So you are going to be one of the main speakers for the BCO conference that is happening in Milan very shortly. So for me, it's a double pleasure to speak to you. One, because of your incredible work and project with Sheppard Robson, but also as an ex-Milan resident, any chance I've got to talk about the city is welcome.
Fantastic.
So 16 years in Milan for me, but I've always worked in furniture, so mainly residential and mainly high-end. So I don't really know the Italian market and expertise in workplace. So what's your experience about that?
The Italian.
Educate me.
Workplace is one thing, but I think what's interesting about workplace is that live, work, play, learn, creating beautiful places that people love to be in, particularly after the last few years, is I think demystifying the idea of office. Office is becoming a much broader term. Where you work can be all over the place, basically. So in a way, your experience is perfect because I think there's the blend of how you work has become so much more varied, and we have so much more choice that with our wonderful digital technology that we can work anywhere, any place for sure. But there are still some things that help make a good workplace. I think there's also some wonderful lessons to be learned from Milan. We spoke yesterday about Milan and why Milan is wonderful, and I certainly have a soft spot for Milan in Italy. I've got a great school friend who's an architect in Milan, does beautiful work. Refurbishing more residential projects, but I think the fabric of the city in Milan is so amazing. The bravery of adding the next modern layer with confidence to a rich heritage is something that we certainly can learn a lot from. And I think Milan, whether you're shopping, whether you're looking at wonderful design products, I think the city is somewhere where people make beautifully precision crafted leather, furniture, buildings, and so there's an awful lot to be learned from that. And I love going to Design Week. Design Week's wonderful. It feels like a real pleasure, and it's where actually the furniture designers and fashion designers become really valued. And so to come to a city where sort of even your taxi drivers talking about the latest designer is really, it's a pleasure for sure.
So, well, first of all, Milan is probably the only city where you can integrate the new with the old, because everywhere else in Italy packed with buildings that are 2,000 years old, that you can't really take them down. Well, there is the new City Life district where the trade fair used to be, which was as ugly as hell. So they knocked it down, and now you've got Zaha did new beautiful buildings. But this is interesting, this thing you mentioned about Design Week, because I remember, obviously, I've been in the UK now for 13 years, so it's a long memory, this one. But I remember I was working for a showroom in the city center of Milan at the time. And across the road, I think we had Etro, which is a fashion brand. But then again, Milan is fashion and design. So the two things really come together. Armani's got his own Armani home collection. It does interior design and all that jazz. But I remember that year, in the windows of Etro, there was, I think it was Philip Stark launching the Mademoiselle chair for Cartel, and then they had integrated the Etro fabric, and And that was really out of this world beautiful. You don't really see that happening much in the UK, this integration between fashion and design, do you?
No, I think it is less so. I think that's what I love about Milan. It's a place where everything's woven together,
Yeah.
and the design education is wonderful too. Because I think having learnt from my old school friend who studied architecture at the same sort of time, and in Milan, she has a sort of an architectural interior design sort of approach to detailing that is just exquisite. So I think so many of the designers in Italy do start with an architectural background and then diversify from there. So there's not a fear of designing a beautiful chair for B&B Italia, say, and using the beautiful crafted, making, whether it's upholstery or the engineering of the minimal child's leg that's just structural feet, the designing the level of detail and precision on human scale items. There is a real pride and a significance sort of that I think is integral to an approach for certainly sort of it's coming out of some of the design in Milan. There's so many people do beautiful leather furniture and with exquisite tailoring, and the tailoring for a jacket in leather is has similarities to the tailoring.
Yeah, there is a sophistication. Italians do have a sophistication that is very difficult to find outside of Italy. Are you going to have any time off while you're there?
I will have a little, and I do. There will be a couple of places I will be heading to.
Yeah.
After having spent time there in Design Week, I think I might pop up to this particular shop I like, the Rick Owen shop. And actually, he is a designer who isn't Italian, but very inspired by and spends a lot of time in Italy. And he does quite beautiful architectural spaces, interior spaces, as well as crafting sort of very interesting fashion. And he has a tailoring background. The other place I'd like to go to is the David Chipperfield Museum, which I make a bit of a pilgrimage to every time I go there. Because I used to work with David, and that to me summarizes the bravery of the modern in an existing quarter. So the Culture Museum that he worked on several years ago is certainly one of the places I'll enjoy having a little sneak to.
Have you ever been to the Armani Museum?
Yes.
It's very near to the venue the BCO is using for the conference, which is the Super Studio Plus. But when I went to see the Armani Museum, I thought the interiors, the building was even more stunning than the collection of clothing itself.
Yes.
Right, I'm getting completely digressed here. So let's go back to my script. So the second question is actually so peculiar that I need to read it. So we are talking about the secret sauce. What makes a workplace work? You'll be joining Charlie Green and Andy McBain for Seminar 4, The Art of Customer Experience, the Secret Sauce to Property Success, chaired by Nicola Jones. Can you give us a flavor of what you'll be sharing and what makes customer experience such a vital but often overlooked ingredient?
Well, I mean, if you've read anything about some things that I've been doing as a career, people matter. And I think both Charlie and Andy, definitely understand that, and from different sort of approaches to creating property for people. But I'm really excited that the BCO has committed to the Customer Experience Awards, which I'm part of now this year for the first time. And I think without people, offices are just a commercial product. And if we've found that out in the last little while, empty offices have no value at all. But so I think creating places for people is so fundamental in terms of attracting people to coming together as a cultural organisation. And an office is an unusual place in some ways because it has lots of connotations and negative things of corporate, dead, serried rows of desks, somewhere where you have to come to. Whereas actually, it can be the most exciting place you could possibly imagine. When you think of your colleagues that you work with and the cultural DNA of what you make together, the excellence you can create when you come together as an organism, they say the heart of the city beats warm. The heart of the city beats warm. And that, to me, I think it always rings very true. It's like the lifeblood of a city is the people. So, if the place doesn't make that happen, it can stop it happening.
It does, 100%, yeah.
If it's dull, if it's monotone. But I think if it's diverse and complex, and there's lots of interesting places there, filled with purpose, you can create a really exciting, attractive place to come to. And of all the times that I've been working in this industry, now is the time we absolutely have to bring people together. And it's meant that I think what an office has risen in its significance to many organisations as they realise that you can't just mandate coming into the office anymore. You have to attract people in. So to make that sticky destination where people really want to come in, you need to absolutely understand the subtlety and detailing, and purpose that is required for what people do. So I think it's a very exciting time to be connected to offices.
I had a couple of conversations here on the podcast. One was with Karen Tierney, is the head of property for Virgin Money, and they just opened the new offices in Glasgow. And she was explaining to me how the office is now a way to attract and retain talent. It's not, as you say, it's not anymore just a desk. It needs to be so much more than that. But as human beings, we are constantly evolving. We went through COVID and we are nowhere near the people we were before COVID, work-wise. So how can you design something that is a bit future-proof? We are talking about sustainability and circular economy, something like that. It's not sustainable to do a fit out of a new office every 3-5 years because the people have changed. So is there anything we can do to actually future-proof a fit out?
I think the interesting thing about our current time is that the one thing we can guarantee is change. I've designed offices before this existed, and you can't imagine it now, without the digital technology, etc., that helps to make the world so much more complex and be able to sort of make anywhere an office when you're and you can be on the move and much more mobile. But I think the thing that is really important is to design for an amount of change to allow some sort of flexibility, but also to do a deep dive into what you need to do when you're within the office.
Yep.
And on one level, you could say whether there's a one axis which says scale of types of spaces. So, from intimate to, we have a room for 70 people that we're going to have a big event shortly in our office. So, you want to get different numbers of people together, say, and that has a different requirement, how you take people through that journey when they're coming into your office accordingly. So there's scale. And then I think there's the use case within those spaces. And probably the biggest change recently is the level of digital. And we do lots of work with broadcasters. So interestingly, some of the spaces we've designed for broadcasters have a very knowledgeable understanding of the acoustics and lighting, and the fact that you need a studio to land the best digital experience, and you need, just like setting up for today, lighting, the right environment, the right acoustics, right digital technology. You need all of those things, and there's a greater pressure on supporting the digital world within your environment. So, and digital has changed, but equally it's a lot more mobile and flexible and can do so much more. So I've set up here in one of our meeting rooms on a table. And in a way, this is the most fundamental thing that you could be at a kitchen table. It's more simple, whereas the technology is more complicated.
Yeah.
But equally, the acoustics experience. The other thing reminds me of, I went to see one of our clients, which we handed over one of the floors for just this last week, and she's in a very famous building in the city in Leadenhall. Beautiful building. They've re-imaged their workplace, and in doing so, she said to me something very pertinent today. She said, "If you had shown me what this office was like in a visual, I don't think I would have fully understood how it feels to be in this space.
Yeah.
She said the feeling of the environment is so calm and so delightful. We're really, really happy with this environment.
I totally get that. I mean, I'm nowhere near as talented as you are, but here in my space, well, everything, I'm trying to ask my clients, put everything on wheels so I can constantly move around furniture. It changes all the time. But also it's lovely how people come in and they kind of exhale, and you can come in for a glass of wine. The fridge is always full. So it's as you say, if you look at the pictures, it's completely different than actually coming in and experiencing the environment.
Yeah. So definitely. And I think that sense of hospitality, you've just mentioned their hospitality. And coming in and understanding people's needs. And I think the also thing you said there, a glass of wine, say, not everybody might be offering sort of alcoholic drink, but the idea that you understand how to professionally socialize.
Yeah.
I think that is a bit of a secret to the office, because the office, you come in and yes, there's intimate conversations that, people, if you're lucky, you get on with your colleagues. So you have, chat about their children, the dog, their home, whatever. But the most important thing you need to get is the conversations in the office that are more informal.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that, we've totally missed in the last.
Because then everybody's more relaxed and it lets the brain flow. And then you never know, people that maybe they would be shy and they would intervene or engage in a conversation. All of a sudden they feel like, oh, I'm relaxed now. So there is more brain power coming together, and you never know, something magic might happen.
Absolutely. And you feel it too. I mean, when I walked right in the middle of my team, they were just around the corner here. And when you come in on a day when everybody's there and buzzing, I feel deeply satisfied because I can sort of feel them all coming in. And it's whilst there's, we're running a business and there's deadlines and they're working for clients and there's all sorts of, very important corporate things that we do. But equally, if there's a good sense of energy, you go, that, things are good, and it's attractive too. It's appealing, because people then feel they want to be part of this and they can contribute at different levels. So I just love the range of people that, I'm able to work with in my own teams, and clients the same. And it's the corporate structure, the formal structure, but it's the informal as well.
Mm-hmm.
At the moment we've got Design Week happening in Clerkenwell, and when I've been out and about visiting furniture makers and suppliers, I bumped into a lot of the team, away from their desk, and and it's just so nice to be able to go to meet the people out of the office as well. And I think it's that if a really good quality organisation was a tapestry, going back to fashion, fabric intention is really strong. But one thread you can snap, but you may weave with warped and weft, and you've got something incredibly strong and useful and quite important. And so you need to understand all those layers of the people. And I think that's what I find when we're working with an organisation. It is never, ever dull, because the variety of people we work with is so complex and interesting and varied that, when we go and have the privilege to take a brief from a client, you might be, sometimes we're working with organisations. We work with Mama Coffee, who were about 30 people, and now they've grown. They make the cakes in their kitchen, and they're the most amazing coffee, obviously, too. But we then might work for an organisation like Deloitte that's got 20,000 people working with them, but actually they're all people. I do remember one client turning around to me and say, when I was talking about corporate, and he said, corporate are made up of people too. And if you understand that, then you know that you can start to get to know that client when you're taking a brief, and work out what their purpose is, what they do, what they want to do in the future, what the vision for the organisation is. And you can then help them start to plan. And sometimes it's less space. Sometimes it's not moving. It's staying where you are and reinventing your space. And then, which is a very Italian approach to, if you think about your cities, reinventing your cities and working on the layers of your city. But it is very much a city inside. I think the complexity of what you need in in an office is like a really great neighborhood externally. You need that variety of spaces and places and use case. But you need to understand the drivers for that too. So you need to absolutely understand how many of them you need, what size they need, what you might be. There's no point in creating a space for about 100 and you only use that once a year. So it's understanding the use case is really important.
So I had a conversation. There is this very brilliant young man that is the founder of Superbeam, which is a media agency based in London. And they make some incredible videos. They're specialized in the built environment. So he was up for an event here at Isalotto, and he was explaining how this, exactly what you just said, how corporate is now becoming more informal, is actually more focusing on the people. And they say, at the end of the day, people buy from people. The corporate language is dead. So that was, again, is how interesting how you also notice that in workplace. But then the other thing you brought back to me memories. You very kindly came up here to Glasgow in 2019 to chair a panel for one of my events on neurodiversity. And we had in the panel abstract and then the Autism Association, things like that. You were presenting at the time the BBC new headquarters in Cardiff that you had just completed. Have things evolved since then?
I think that was a great event to be involved with, and it was amazing having the range of people you had speaking together.
That's incredibly kind of you, but
it was great, and to test our findings, our thinking, sort of with some of those people was great. But I think BBC Wales was a game changer.
Yeah.
And it's driven again by the people and the requirements that they had as an organisation to champion a real range of people and to be more inclusive with the people they employed and ensure they got the best out of that variety of people. So they were doing a deep dive into how they could broaden, their skill sets within their organisation, and that they challenged us to create that building to match. And I mean, from that we were able to work with Jean Hewitt, who wrote the British Standards PAS for neurodiversity. And whilst we love making beautiful things and beautiful places with purpose, we working with some of the team that had a broad diversity in terms of the way that their thought process worked, gave us an opportunity to really test our design thinking and turn it from being a constraint into an opportunity.
Okay.
And we basically looked at some of the requirements that some of the teams wanted, and there was a particular moment in BBC which was a bit of a penny dropping for me, was that when we worked with Liana, one of the team that was more diverse, she looked at some of the patterning we were making in the meeting rooms that were our landmarks, that were glass, and this very open, beautiful building that they had in BBC Wales. And we created these wonderful Welsh patterns from the textile designers who were sort of wonderful narrative with some of their work. And we created some manifestation on the meeting rooms that had a next layer of, they were digital colour. You could see them when you walked in the front door. We used them in the wayfinding, and then when you got to the meeting rooms, they had this wonderful sort of patterns, sort of inspired by some of the Welsh talent. It was really fabric of narrative from Wales, built into the building. And when we got in there with Liana, she turned around and said, "Oh my God, this is too busy." And there was a moment we went, "Oh my God, we've done all this work, years of work with all of this great talent to create something that was really not officing in a traditional way. Lots of rich variety narrative. The meeting rooms were all subdued and subtle, so the lighting was dropped low so that it supported neurodiversity. And then we were about to think we were going to have to chuck the whole thing out. Now, all of that work was gone to nothing. And when we spoke to her, instead of her saying, "No, just go black and white," she said, "No, I love the organic feeling of the space you created, the soft, the dimmed light. It makes me feel wonderful. It's just a shade too busy inside."
Right.
So all we did was we added a layer of soft curtains that help with acoustics again. Very media. Curtains are very useful for that. And we softened the pattern inside, and we were job done. We'd created the environment inside that was restful and calm, But on the outside, we still have all that wonderful narrative in the meetings that helped you find your way in pattern as well as name and number in the building. And I think what that made me think was that the design opportunity is so wonderful and rich to create all sorts of wonderful different places depending on different types of people. But the use case for the diversity factor is actually a human understanding. And we probably are all sympathetic to, client today turning around and saying, this space makes me feel calm. I love it. Walking into this environment makes me feel calm. And you very rarely go out and go, I tell you what, wow, I'm going to win this pitch by saying I'm going to make your environment calm.
Yeah, I bet.
But as human beings, our productivity and our team's productivity has blossomed because the environment around is being helpful. And it's the acoustics, it's the lighting, it's the natural lighting, it's the patterns, it's the colours and textures, all of those things that are quite subtle things, but that do create an environment that, the work that we've done, I've just handed over today and this week, the learnings that we had from that original BBC sort of exploration that was a game changer is just normal design now for us.
One of the reasons why I'm so passionate about this industry is because good design and good architecture can actually improve people's lives. You've got such an incredible power in your hands that, as you just said, are relaxing, whether you're neurodiverse or just stressed. Or I've done an event last year all about well-being where we had a couple of people that are specialized in architecture for dementia. They came in and talked about the aging eye and the light and the patterns and the colors. It's fascinating how much your work can actually get people happier and even physically healthier. That's incredible. You were talking earlier on about offices, like a collection of neighborhoods. And obviously we've been talking lately, partly because of COVID, but not just because of COVID, about the importance of communities, right? And how the architecture and design, placemaking or developments can create communities and reinforce communities. Do you think development that is not just purely office, but is a mixed development? So you have a bit of flats, a bit of office, a bit of retail, a bit, club, a hub, is actually more beneficial than just a block of offices?
I think amenity is hugely important. And in some ways, whoever runs that amenity, as long as they do it really, really well, adds to the variety of the city. I mean, the City of London itself, I'm doing a talk shortly about humanising the city. We're moving quite a few organisations sort of back into the heart of the City of London. And, since I first started working there, the level of amenity has so increased and multiplied. And it's not quite answering the question all in one building. I think you need access to a variety, and it shouldn't just be a binary. You sit there and go and sit at a desk and in a big office block and that's it.
Yeah.
There are so many other needs that you have during the day, and our lives are more blended and more complex than they ever have been. In order to service that efficiently, you need a variety within that city. So greater variety is great. And seeing the City of London itself, the work that's been done in creating the cultural mile that runs right the way through, right past St Paul's, from Barbican down to the Tate Modern, and then the crescent across the top where you've got, there's schools, there's the Guildhall School of Music that's being, upgraded and changed, and then the Museum of London is moving, so it's got a new home that's reinvigorated. Those things are so attractive to those big clients that whilst you may have a big office space within that environment in your neighbourhood, or a big grown-up global neighbourhood, having those other amenities, not least the river running through, it's so appealing to bring people back into the heart of that city and make it vibrant.
So this morning we had here the allocation meeting for the Herald Property Awards, where I've been a judge with them for a few years now. And at the beginning, they always send me to see show homes, and then nobody wanted to go see affordable housing. So I said, why not? I'm always happy to learn something new. So now I'm an affordable housing expert because I've seen so many new developments. So you've been a judge for the BCO for a long time. Is there anything you learned about workplaces by judging those entries?
I think there is. I mean, there's the interesting BCO is great at being very thorough. So I remember when I was leading the judging, it's like there's lots of different opinions, there's lots of little judging categories, and very, very thorough in terms of the deep dive we do. Everything from sustainable credentials right the way down to the amount of air that's pumping through the building, so really, really thorough from all the different disciplines. But the thing that was really fascinating was from all the different judges that came together, almost like a professional team, to work together in a viewing, or the privilege of going into all of this office. And every journey is really fascinating. So it really is a privilege to go in and see, share people's journeys. I think the thing that always struck me was when we really got the lifting of the spirits category. Right at the end, there was a lifting of the spirits category. How we came out of those buildings, despite all being very professional in our different ways, thinking that we're all kind of rational human beings with a thinking left brain. When we came out of the building and our heart was lifted, it was like, that's it.
I love that. I love that.
We're human. It's the human element again. Your heart's lifted. You want to stay in that building. You feel good. You smile.
I'm gonna suggest we add that category as well. I love it. So are you guys do like we do? So we all go into, so basically every entry gets visited by 2 judges, and then we all meet in the middle of August for 1 day, and that's battle over battle. I've seen that project, and it doesn't matter what you guys are gonna tell me, that project's winning. Are you guys doing like that as well? Big fights.
On the BCO, when I was chair of London Judges, that we would all go around, as many as of us possibly we could get together on a schedule over a couple of weeks. We would go and visit 35 different buildings.
Okay.
So it was about 8 judges, and you'd usually get 6 to most buildings, and the maths correlated so that you averaged out the score. But we'd usually come to pretty good conclusions, and then it was almost an argument between the actual winner and the highly commended actual winner was almost the ones that were hardest to kind of distinguish and kind of agree on. But a lot of the time there was a lot of rationale, even though that making you smile factor helped a lot.
Yeah, you need to bring argument to support your favorite project. Yeah. Absolutely. But see, we've got 100 entries, and they are everywhere, from the borders to the Highlands. I mean, this year we need to go on the Hebrides for two judge one. So there's only 2 going for each entry, not everybody.
Yeah, that's very. But if you've got 100, you definitely need to divide and conquer.
Yeah. Right. So to wrap this up, from London to Italy, are we there yet? You've been long being a voice in the UK office space conversation through Sheppard Robson, the BCO, and beyond. As we head to Milan, do you feel British workplace design is where it needs to be?
To be a workplace designer now is the most exciting time to be in the industry, for sure. I think office has never been more relevant in terms of redefining what an office is. And I think it's gone from being a comedy show on the telly to being somewhere that's really, really fundamental to helping an organisation flourish. Because we've lived without them for a bit, I think it's made us realise that to create excellence, to attract people together, we need to give choices, but we've got to do that through appeal and creating wonderful places of excellence that you want to be in more than you do at home. Yeah. So I think that challenge is superb for a designer, because you've got the attention of some very senior people in organisations
they're finally listening.
That energy into the place, and actually to understand that to make people feel good. And that's where that sensitivity to design, whether you're designing for neurodiverse or the most high performance legal practice or whoever the people are, they're all people. So if you can create environments that really embrace people, that help with a sense of purpose, so there's a lot of hard work in terms of use case there, but equally, if they do their job and they then elevate you and they bring people together, that's when you create an environment that supports people being excellent. And now you can speak to the board about that, as well as the layers within the Wharf and Wefton of an organisation, and that's our privilege to be able to do that. And it's much more connected than ever.
Yeah.
So it's an extremely exciting time to be in the industry and to go and going to Milan. Your question about going to Milan, I think the wonderful lessons that we have in terms of going to Milan is that no detail is small enough to be important for a designer. So, cities that reinvent themselves, that are a real making city, Milan is really exciting for that. Go back to the beginning of our conversation. Milan is a place where you can make things, and there's that precision making and tailoring that happens within Milan, and the buildings and fashion and fabric, soft and hard materials, reinvention that you have within a city like Milan. There will be a lot of wonderful reflection, I think we have, taking ourselves out of London, out of the UK, out of Britain, and reflecting on how our colleagues, cousins in Milan respond to design.
It's a bit like being a chef, right? You travel around the world and then all of a sudden your fish and chips gets fusion with a pad thai. So you get influences from all your trips, and obviously Italian design will influence British design and vice versa. So it's fascinating.
And the fusion is great. Cultural fusion is tremendous. And then there's culture never stands still.
Yeah, we need to tell that to the government so they stop immigration so badly.
Absolutely. And that flow, for us, we've got 36 different languages in our office. We love that flow of cultures that, that's London certainly.
Unique.
So unique in terms of being, fused with the whole set of culture. And I think probably now more than ever, not wanting to be political, understanding how connected we are with, opening our arms to Europe is so important.
And how enriching it is, as you say, to actually be able to spend your days, your work, or whatever, with different cultures. You always learn something different.
Yeah.
And on that note, thank you very much. I loved it. And I hope you have an amazing time in Milan. And then maybe we can have a chat about how Milan was for you.
I would love to. That was a great conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for listening to Il Salotto Sessions. If you enjoyed the chat, please make sure you share with your friends and follow our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. For more information on our events, please visit ilsalotto.design and designpopup.com. You can also find us on Instagram _designpopup and Il Salotto Glasgow, as well as LinkedIn. Should you have any feedback, questions or suggestions, please do get in touch at hello@ilsalotto.design. We would love to hear from you. Thank you.